Husbands are commanded to love their wife, and wives are commanded to reverence or respect their husbands. And the reason that we have these commands, the reason that God says these things to us, because that's how it works the best, right? God knows what he's doing. God created us. God created marriage, and he knows the best way that marriage works. And that's when a husband loves his wife unconditionally, and a wife respects or reverences her husband unconditionally. And those can be difficult things to do. And we're obviously focusing this next few weeks on the wives. So, conquest. So, the natural desire for man, for the most part, the natural desire is to conquer challenges in his world. Like that's our driving force. That's what force that pushes men, is to conquer whatever challenge comes our way as men. That's how we're made. That's how God made us. And as a wife, you can start to understand how important, and we're going to focus on our work as husbands, our jobs, our work, even things that the things that we do, right? As a wife, you can start to understand how important that is to a husband when you do that. When you start to understand your husband's work or his job or his conquest in life, his goals and his challenges that he tries to overcome, when you realize how important those things are to him, you'll start to understand why respect from you concerning those things is huge, is a big need for a man. And a lot of times as men, we're not going to go around saying, we talked about this before too. Your wife has probably asked you numerous times, do you love me? Do you really love me? Do you love me still? And of course she knows you do, right? But she needs to hear it. She needs to feel it. She needs to know that. Most men aren't going to go around, do you respect me? Do you respect what I do? Like, I just need to know it. Men aren't going to do that for the most part. They're going to go on and they're going to tough it out, if you want to put it that way. But really, they may not even know it. We as men need that respect. We need that confirmation. We need that backing by the one person that's the closest to us in this entire world, right? Not your mom, not your dad, not their brother, but their wife. They need that support and they need that respect from their wife more than they probably even know if they haven't really thought about it. So if you start to understand that as a wife, you'll start to see how you can really get that energizing cycle going pretty quickly and pretty easily based on how you respect him and how you show that. So we talked last week about the respect test. I won't ask you if you did it or not, wives, if you wrote down the things that you respect about your husband and then said, hey, I just want you to know I really respect you, and just see if he came back to you with, well, like what? And if you were prepared with a list, hopefully you did that. If you didn't do that, I won't mention it next week, so I'll give you some time for him to forget about it so you can do it without him thinking and knowing like, oh, you're just doing this because we talked about it. But think about that respect. Something he values even more than your love. Your husband values respect probably more than he values your love. Now, that's not to diminish the value of your love. That's not to say your loving him doesn't matter to him. I'm not saying that. But he knows you love him. You said yes. He knows you love him. And women have no problem most of the time expressing love. They're very good at showing and expressing love because that's what they need the most. But your husband doesn't value your love as much as he values your respect of him. And he interprets that respect as love as well, though. So it's not that he says, I don't need your love, I only need your respect. When you respect him, he sees that as love. And that affects him in that way. Again, not saying he doesn't respect it or doesn't need your love or doesn't value it. But when he spells love, it's R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Now it's in your head. You're welcome. That's what he views as love. That's how love is. That's how he views it. So when you respect him, he feels love by you, from you, when he's respected. Then you look back from the very beginning. Go back to Genesis chapter 2. From the very beginning, when God created man, what did he create man for? And you all know what we're going to do, what we're going to say, and what God did. Genesis 2:15, the Bible says, and the Lord God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. The man's number one job before Eve came around, God made man for fellowship, for communication, for that relationship. But the first job the man had was to work. That's what man was created to do. That's what the man was created to do, was to work, to do, to conquer, to do something. That was the very first innate thing that God made him to do. Man got his first career assignment from God. His first job, the first thing he got hired to do was to keep the Garden of Eden by God. God was his first boss. That was the first thing Adam was doing. He wasn't a dad. He wasn't rearing children. He wasn't a husband. He wasn't loving a wife. He was an employee of the Lord working. That's how important work is to your husband. That's how important his job and his career and who he almost defines himself by what he does. That's how important it is to him. That's the value that he places on his job, on his work. Now, he may hate his job. He may hate things about his job. Let's be honest, there are some days that we all hate our job. I work for myself. I am my boss, and I hate my job sometimes. Like, there are days I just hate my job. We all go through times like that. But our job and what we are is almost what we are and what we do. Now, there are other facets to us, obviously. I know that, and we become more than just our job. But our innate desire and our natural instinct is to work and to put value on that. And I'm putting a lot of time and effort into this, so I think we all know this, but just to maybe remind you, as a wife who doesn't have that immediate natural instinct to work, not to say you can't work or don't work or are unable to, but most women, their natural instinct is to mother, is to teach and to grow and to nurture. That's not a man's instinct. His instinct is to work. And so it's different. It's that pink sunglasses, blue sunglasses thing, right? Where women see things a certain way, men see things a different way, and we have to work at deciphering how each other views things. So when you look at your husband and the work that he does, and men a lot of times can become workaholics, and then there are bad things with that too, obviously. We're not necessarily going to go there this week, but there are negative connotations to too much work. But understand where he is and what inside him and how God made him pushes him to that direction. It's God knew this is what man is. He is to work. And then when he created women, right, when he created Eve, what was her job? Her job was to be a helpmeet to him, right? To help him, to complete him, to be there for him. Go to 1 Corinthians chapter 11. 1 Corinthians chapter 11. Now, feminists in the world will not like this verse at all. I know all you godly ladies in here, though, understand where God is coming from on this and believe the Bible is to be true. But 1 Corinthians 11, verse number 9 says, "Neither was the man created for the woman, but the woman for the man." So God shows us that God created Eve and God created women, and the woman, when the relationship for a marriage relationship, you are made for him. Yes, you're a mother. You might be a mother. You might be a mother someday. That's definitely part of your job description. It's definitely something you will want to do, and that is honorable and great. But the first thing you are created for as a woman is for your husband. Like that's why Eve was created. She wasn't created to be, a mom. She was a mom. She wasn't created to be an employee somewhere. I'm sure she helped doing a lot of work. It wasn't her job to make the home or to make, just do those things. Her job was to complete Adam, was to help him and encourage him and be there for him. That was her job. And today, in today's culture, the women's role has changed. A lot of it's changed because the men's role has changed, or our willingness to be who we're supposed to be might have changed too. But as Christians and as our marriage relationships, the role of the wife is to be there for the man. And that's why you can see that verse, those verses, and the thought of the man needing respect are so tied together. It's not a submissive under my thumb thing, right? A rule with the iron fist. It's he needs you. He needs you to help him. He needs you to support him and complete him and respect him. That drives him. And we'll get to that here in a little bit too. But you, the wife, were made to help him. But his number one job, the thing he was made for, was to work. And that's just part of who we are. When guys meet other guys for the first time, one of the very first questions we ask each other is, so what do you do? That's the before. I mean, it might be, we know their name probably by that point. We know at least their first name. But the next question is never, how many kids you got? How long you been married? No, it's where do you work? What do you do? What do you do for your living? What is it you do? That's where we as men start. When we don't know each other, that's where we start our relationship, is what do we do? And then they ask you, what do you do? And you talk about your jobs, you talk about your work, because that's how we define ourselves. That's what we're made to be. Right or wrong, men identify who they are by what they do. That's just how we operate. Think about a little boy, right? If you have nephews, cousins, or if you have little boys, what are some of the things that they do as they grow up? No one has to teach them these things. They just immediately, they want to do things and adventure and conquer things, right? There's a story he gives in the book where his mother just wanted no guns. So she took no, you can't pretend a stick is a gun. There are no toy guns in the house. We're not going to play with guns. And that was the rule. And he had the 7 or 8-year-old boy. And she realized this is a failing endeavor when he took his grilled cheese sandwich and ate a gun shape out of it. And had a grilled cheese sandwich because he's a boy. And he, guns or arrows or fighting or whatever, just they want to do stuff. They want to conquer things. Little boys want to climb that tree to get to the top of it. They want to cross the street to get to the other side. They want to do things. It's just part of who we are. Even as little kids, we want to do stuff. And that's why boys go out and do things, right? They want to become and conquer, and that's part of the conquest. The academic term for that is instrumentality of the male. It's just that's what they're made to be. And that's how God created us. And so when a wife understands that and realizes that, and again, this is not to excuse poor behavior by a husband, but this is a base ground for us as a relationships in here, right? That when a wife begins to understand what a job and what work, what conquering and conquest and, going out and becoming something or doing something means to a man, you can start to see how you can communicate with him and encourage him and respect him better and more. We've done this example before, but think about in the future. If you have little boys or you'll have little boys eventually, maybe someday, think about your boy growing up, becoming a man and marrying another woman, right? He's going to find another girl to replace you, Mom. I'm sorry, it's going to happen. You will cry a lot probably, or maybe you'll be like, yay, go, I don't know. But someday he's going to meet somebody. How do you want your future daughter-in-law to treat your boy when it comes to his work? And how do you want her to support him? Or, think about how you treat your husband with his job specifically. Do you want your future daughter-in-law talking to your son that way? Do you want your future daughter-in-law to treat your son the way you treat your husband sometimes when it comes to work? Maybe yes, great, you do great, wonderful. But I bet there's times where maybe not. Maybe you'd be like, how dare you talk to my boy that way? Out come the claws and mother-in-law's in full bore, right? If you think about it that way and then reflect that upon your life, you want your son to grow up and he'll have that desire to achieve and work and do just like your husband does. How do you want his wife to treat him? You want her to support him. You want her just to encourage him and push him along and be his helpmeet. That's what your husband needs from you. Your husband needs that from you. He needs your support. He needs your encouragement. Have you ever said to your husband, and hopefully you probably have, but think about it. Have you ever said to your husband, just thanks for working today? Thanks for going to work. Thanks for putting in 50, 60 hours this week. Or even 30, 20, whatever. Thanks for working. Thanks for doing. Yes, to support our family. Yes, to pay the bills. Yes, to make sure, we have heat in the house and water out the faucets. Yes, of course. But just thanks for going and working. And sometimes wives probably just kind of don't because it's just they go to work. Of course they do. That's what they do. They go to work, they come home, and then he does stuff at the house. And, that's just life. He works. But what if you lived your life and your husband never said, I love you to you? And then maybe those aren't apples to apples, apples to oranges. But if he never said to you the thing that you need, I love you, you'd be like, well, how can we just live a life and you never say I love you to me? Well, how can he go to work every day, do, but he never get any respect for it verbally? Well, I respect him. I'm grateful for him going to work. I've said it before. But if he doesn't get it continuously, right? If he said, I love you once, and then he was good till your birthday, right? And he says, I love you on your birthday and holidays, anniversaries, you'd be good with that, right? If that's the only ever time you ever heard love or, got that expression, no, you wouldn't be okay with that. And men are like, yeah, we just go to work. But if we were given that thanks, that would be like, oh, wow. That would affect a man. It would affect him. So look for simple and effective ways of showing respect, right? There's one right there. And I'm going to finish up here with a couple more things. But I did talk about that respect test again. I definitely would recommend doing it. Maybe it's awkward to just say, hey, sit and think about your husband, think about some things you respect about him, and write them down. And then another time, just go to him when he's not busy doing something or whatever, just hanging out and say, hey, I just want you to know I was thinking about you, and I respect you for a lot of things. And just walk away. Most likely he'll be like, well, yeah, like what? Or you could just preemptively say, here's a list of things I respect about you, and talk to him about it. If you gave him a piece of paper with a bunch of things that you respected about him on it, just out of the blue, not out of the blue now that we just talked about it, but still, he would read that, and that would hit him right here. And he may already know you think those things. He probably does. With the relationships we have, and I don't know all the struggles or issues we all have, which we all have them, but just knowing everyone in here as I do, you probably have a relationship where he knows you respect him. But if he heard it and read it, it would get to his heart. 100% guaranteed it would. Make that effort. Take that time to do that respect test. It's putting yourself out there a little bit, because then you have to think of things that you do respect about him. Hopefully, I would imagine most of you wouldn't have a hard time doing that. But sometimes wives just expect their husbands to work just because that's their job, that's what they do. But if you give them the respect of thanks, they will feel that as love. They'll see that as love. That's how men feel it and spell it and understand it, is the respect. Lastly, he wants a woman who believes in him. Men want a woman who believes in them. When you were courting, when you were dating, he believed that. He knew you believed in him. And you cheered for him, and you encouraged him, and you were behind him all the way. Think back to sports. Why do we have cheerleaders? Honestly, the big thing for cheerleaders, for the players. They want somebody to encourage them. Now, it's become something way more. But if you think back to, even when I was in high school, and you played intramural sports at a Christian school, right? Which, okay, fine, whatever. It is what it is. But if there was a cheerleader who cheered for you, you were like, oh, wow. You might not even be dating her. You may not even like her. But if she's like, yeah, go Chad, you'd be like, okay. On a football field, that affects a man. He needs a woman that supports him and believes in him. And so you as the wife, again, the one person in your husband's life that means the most to him, that he's the closest to, that he chose, that God ordained for you two to be together, and you're the most important human being on this planet to him. He needs you to believe in him. He needs it. And he needs to know it. You might say, well, I do believe in him. Have you told him that? Have you given him that inclination? Have you shown him that through respect? Have you said those words to him? A man needs a woman to believe in him. Again, look at how Eve, what she was made to be. She was made to be there for him as his helpmeet. He fell in love with you. And when he did, he saw a woman that believed in him. And at the time, during courtship, and we could reverse this with the men and how we love our wives too. You would have done anything for your fiance. But then once we get married, and we're married for a little while, we get complacent. We get complacent with each other. We get busy. And then you throw kids into the mix, then it's really busy. And then it's crazy, and you forget about each other almost completely. You can. So you have to do it intentionally. And again, we could flip it with men need to give their wives the attention and love they need, but we're talking about the women today. He fell in love with a woman, and he saw that she believed in him. She was proud of his accomplishments. She would cheer him on for the rest of his life's endeavors. Even if those words weren't going through his head, that's what he felt. That she loves me. She cheers me on in what I want to do. She supports my dreams, even my crazy, big, adventurous dreams that seem scary and too risky. She's there for me. She supports me. She believes in me. When you were getting first married and when you were going through engagement, that's what he felt. Does he still feel that way? Does he still have that woman? Does he still have the woman that cheers him on, that believes in everything he does? The yes is wise, and you don't have to go along with everything a husband wants to do, right? That's why there's two of you. But I think you get the point. Does he still have the woman that's behind him, that cheers him on, that believes in him as a man, and believes he can do, if he thinks he can do something and has a good plan, you're with him. And you're going to support him. And you're going to push him. Does he still have that woman? Or have we gotten so busy that we're too busy being mom, we're too busy working our job, we're too busy making our house, doing our things, that we've kind of neglected our responsibility as a wife to be that person? Because your husband needs that more than he probably even understands. He'll keep doing his job because he's supposed to. But, if your husband's kind of quiet, not happy, seems kind of blah, not saying, all our personalities are different and some of us are just more, quiet and just whatever. But he still needs that woman that believes in him and respects him and will support him. That's the conquest part of understanding what a man views, or how a man views what he does and who he is, and how the wife is a key aspect of that, a vital part of him feeling fulfilled in what he does. He'll still identify as his job, but if his wife doesn't support him in what he does, it won't be as fulfilling to him. He'll do it because it's his job. He'll do it because it's a responsibility. He'll do it because he's a good man and he works for his family. But if you give him and believe in him and push him and respect him, it'll be a lot more fulfilling for him, because he'll feel fulfilled in what he's doing matters, not just to him, but to you. And he'll know you see it. And again, he spells love as respect. So a couple things you can do that your husband will respect from you, and he'll know that you respect him. Tell him verbally or in writing that you value his work efforts. You value who he is. He understands and feels respect when you express your faith in him in his current job, in the field that he's in. When you express faith in what he's doing in him, he understands that as respect. When you listen to his work stories or his work day as closely as you expect him to listen to your accounts of what happened at home that day. So when you listen to his things that happen at work, good or bad, with as much intention as you expect him to do when you're going to talk about what happened at home or with the kids or when you were out, he understands that as respect. When you see yourself as his helpmeet, he understands that as respect. When you see yourself as his helpmeet, because that's how you identify yourself. Not because God made you do it, and I have to be his helpmeet, but I'm still going to be me. No, but when you view yourself as that's your job, to be his helpmeet. When you allow him to dream big. Again, conquest, men want to conquer. Let them have crazy ideas. Let your husband have crazy ideas and talk with him about them. Don't shut him down. If he has this big, crazy idea that's going to make money or make the house bigger or whatever idea he's got, project that he wants to do, I'm not saying just let him do it, but I'm saying talk with him about it. Just don't go, no, and shut him down. Talk with him about it. Let him dream big. And then lastly, don't subtly criticize his work in the field, quote unquote, to get him to show more love in the family. In other words, don't downplay all this work you do. I wish you would spend more time at home. You work too much. You do too much of this. I wish you would be with the kids more. You do too much out here. I just wish you would stop doing that so much and focus more here. That's not going to get him to go, oh, you're right, I should love more. That's the crazy cycle. That's criticizing who he is in order to get love from him. That never works. You're never going to get love by being disrespectful. So be careful about, there may be need for discussions about time and work and hours and jobs. That's possible. But find a way to do it that won't come across as criticizing what he does because he doesn't do enough somewhere else. When you treat your husband that way, when you give him the respect he needs, again, most men don't even realize they need this. Most men don't see and would never be like, yeah, I need my wife's respect, otherwise I can't. Women will be like, yeah, my husband doesn't love me enough. He doesn't treat me the way I should be treated. And usually don't have a hard time expressing that. Men do. No man's that has a little bit of a wall up is going to be like, yeah, I just need my wife's respect. If I had her respect, I could be more of a man. He's just not going to do that, right? He's just going to go on with or without it. But if you want the energizing cycle, if you want the relationship that God intends for us to have, he needs your respect and he needs your support. All right.